Hip hinges refer to exercises that do exactly what they say. They ask you to hinge at the hip, and they target the hamstrings and glutes primarily. So know that when you see a hip hinge exercise, you're meant to feel it in the glutes and hamstrings. We're going to talk about two different categories of hip hinges in this video, so stay with me. The first category is a knee dominant hinge, where your biggest flexion is in your knees, and the classic example would be a glute bridge. So for this one, the most important cues I can share with you are knees, hips, and toes are all in line. You're going to drive through your heels, pushing into the floor, and squeeze your glutes at the top, okay? So knees, hips, toes all in line, drive through your heels, squeeze your glutes. Those are your 3 steps. Things to watch out for would be if you're feeling this more in your knees or your shins, you want to play around with your foot placement. You could play around with coming a little bit closer or working a little farther away. Find that position that allows you to access that activation in the hamstrings and glutes. Another thing to watch out for that's a little more rare, but sometimes you might find that you're scrunching your shoulders towards your ears. So you want to stay relaxed in the upper body. There are many variations of this type of exercise. One you'll see is a single leg bridge. So in this case, same cueing applies. Knees, hips, and toes are all in line. Drive through your heel into the floor. Squeeze your glute. This time, you're isolating one leg, and you want to work on keeping the hips level. So if you notice that you're kind of like swiveling around, then you want to check on that, see if you can reset, and just work on that level hip. And you can see I'm actually using my elbows as a little bit of balance. As you become more advanced, I'll show some on the other leg. As you become more advanced, maybe you take away that balance and reach your arms up. So lots of ways to challenge that type of movement. You'll see things like leg curls, where it's more like you're dragging your heel in and out. Same rules, knees, hips, and toes all in line. You want to push through your heel and squeeze your glutes, okay? So that's a knee dominant hinge. The other kind is hip dominant. So classic example would be like a deadlift. So 2 feet together deadlift. I'm going to show with dumbbells. You can, of course, do this with bands or a barbell, but you want to retract your shoulders to create stability in your torso. Drive your hips back, and then drive your hips forward. Put your mind's eye on your heel, pushing into the floor, and your hamstring. So the biggest cues with this one are really hips back, hips forward, hips back, hips forward. You also want to make sure you don't lose your shoulders. So I see this a lot where we've got weights in our hands and we get kind of distracted by the fact the weights are in our hands, and we want to just reach the weights towards the floor. So it turns into something like this. We're like reaching down, down, down and getting rounded in the back. I don't care how close the weights get to the floor. I care that you load your hamstring. So pinch your shoulders together, keep your back flat, keep the weights really close to your legs, close to your center of gravity. And that's going to keep the work out of your low back as well. So that's on 2 feet. That's just a classic Romanian deadlift. You'll also see challenges where we do that same exact movement, but on one leg. So are we noticing a theme? We've got 2 leg and 1 leg versions of everything. So you've got this version. So all the same rules apply. Hips back, and then you drive your hips forward, squeeze your glutes at the top. What helps here is to also squeeze the glute on the lifting leg and pull your toe towards your shin. So you want to really activate this leg and make it nice and stable. And again, don't worry about getting your weights down to the floor. Just keep them close to your standing leg. Notice your hamstring lighting up, and then drive your heel into the floor. So those are my best cues for your hip hinge exercises. I hope they really help you in your next workout.